Good morning, Year 3, and happy Monday. It's Miss Everingham here, and this week things get really exciting because you are becoming the writers. Last week we were retelling Into the Forest by Anthony Brown. This week you're going to be using your creativity to come up with the end, what happens next in the story. So let's get started. You will need today a pen or pencil and your home learning book or piece of paper to write on. Press pause while you gather these things and press play when you're ready to get started. Fantastic. So your writing task this week is to write a short sequel to Into the Forest. A sequel is a story that comes after our story. So what is going to happen next to the boy who went into the forest? First, let's remind ourselves about the story. Press pause on this video while you go to watch the story being read at the YouTube link there, or in the home email today, your daily email. The link is in there too. So press pause while you listen to the story and press play when you're ready to continue. Fantastic. So each day this week, you're going to learn a different skill to include in your big piece of writing at the end of this week. I wonder what today's skill is going to be. Have a read with me and see if you can work out what feature I have highlighted in red. It was wonderful to see Mum and Dad again after the scary adventure in the forest. I ran to Mum and gave her a big hug as soon as I saw her. I couldn't shake the memory of the hungry children in the forest as I fell asleep that night in my warm, comfortable bed. I realized that I could not rest until I helped them. I decided to carry my wooden basket into the forest, even if the idea sent chills down my spine. The next morning, I threw on my red coat and collected my basket. I filled it to the brim with fresh food before I stepped outside. I whispered confidently to myself that I would return safely home once I had reached the children. What feature have I highlighted in red? Today we are learning to use subordinating conjunctions in our writing to engage our reader. In red were subordinating conjunctions. My turn. Today, I'm learning to use subordinating conjunctions in my writing to engage my reader. Your turn. Fantastic. Before we learn about subordinating conjunctions, we need to remind ourselves of what a dependent clause is. My turn. A dependent clause is a group of words that do not make sense by themselves because they are not a complete thought. Your turn. Fantastic. Well done. Beautiful loud voices, everyone. My turn. A dependent clause is a group of words that do not make sense by themselves because they are not a complete thought. Your turn. Fantastic. A dependent clause. We're going to be finding out a bit more about that now. The boy set off along the path at the beginning of the day. The main clause makes sense by itself. The boy set off along the path. The dependent clause is a group of words that do not make sense by themselves because they are not a complete thought. At the beginning of the day. At the beginning of the day, that doesn't make sense by itself. What about this one? Be careful to take the long way around when you reach the forest. The main clause in green, be careful to take the long way around. That makes sense by itself. But when you reach the forest doesn't make sense by itself because it's not a complete thought. Can you guess? It's a dependent clause. That's right. A dependent clause is a group of words that do not make sense by themselves because they are not a complete thought. Which option is a dependent clause? 1, 2, or 3? Tick if it is, cross if it isn't. Write it down on the piece of paper in front of you. Press pause while you work it out and press play when you're ready to check. Fantastic. Let's see how you went. Which of these sentences are dependent clauses? A dependent clause is a group of words that make sense by themselves because they're not that do not make sense, by themselves because they're not a complete thought. We're looking for words that don't make sense by themselves. Which mother had maid? Number 1. That doesn't make sense by itself. It's not a complete thought. That's a dependent clause. Fantastic. Number 2, the girl could smell the fresh cake. That's a main clause. That makes sense by itself. It's not a dependent clause. Number 3, until you arrive. That doesn't make sense by itself. That's a dependent clause. Fantastic. Press pause if you need to fix up your answer or press play when you're ready, and then press play when you're ready to continue. Which option is a dependent clause? What's a dependent clause again? Yes, that's right. A dependent clause is a group of words that do not make sense by themselves because they are not a complete thought. That's what we're looking for here. Which one of these is a dependent clause? Tick or cross? Press pause while you work out your answer and press play when you're ready to check. Fantastic. Let's check. Number 1, when you walk to grandmother's. That doesn't make sense by itself because it's not a complete thought. That is a dependent clause. Tick. Take the path around the forest. That makes sense by itself. That's a main clause, not a dependent clause, so that should have a cross. 3, as you walk. That is a dependent clause because it doesn't make sense by itself. It's not a complete thought. Well done. Write down the dependent clause in this sentence. I will give grandmother a big hug when I arrive. Write down in that sentence, what is the dependent clause? Press pause while you work it out and press play when you're ready to check. Fantastic. Let's see how you went. I will give grandmother a big hug is the main clause. When I arrive is the dependent clause. The dependent clause doesn't make sense by itself. The main clause does. What about this one? Write down the dependent clause in this sentence. Have you seen the girl who was in the forest? Write down the dependent clause, which is the group of words that do not make sense by themselves because they're not a complete thought. Press pause while you work it out and press play when you're ready to check your answer. Fantastic work. Who was in the forest? That is the dependent clause. It's not a complete thought. Have you seen the girl? Is the main clause. Okay, now that we know what dependent clauses are, we today are learning what subordinating conjunctions are. My turn. Subordinating conjunctions join a main clause and a dependent clause together. My turn. Subordinating conjunctions join a main clause and a dependent clause together. Your turn. Fantastic. Again, really loud voices. Well done. My turn. Subordinating conjunctions join a main clause and a dependent clause together. Your turn. Fantastic. Subordinating conjunctions join a main clause and a dependent clause together. Let's have a look at this one. He walked carefully towards her. That's the main clause. That makes sense by itself. He walked carefully towards her. After she smiled at him. After joins the main clause and the dependent clause together. After is a subordinating conjunction. My turn. After is a subordinating conjunction. Your turn. Fantastic. It joins the main clause and the dependent clause together. There are so many subordinating conjunctions. Look at all of them on the screen. Today, you're going to be using these in your writing. Which of these sentences includes a subordinating conjunction? How do you know? My turn. Subordinating conjunctions join a main clause and a dependent clause together. Your turn. Okay. The frightened boy shivered every time he saw a shadow. The boy squeezed his palms together until they turned red. He ran into the darkening forest. Which one of these sentences includes a subordinating conjunction joining a main clause and a dependent clause together? Press pause while you work it out. Press play when you're ready to check your answer. Fantastic. This is a tricky one. Let's see how you went. The frightened boy shivered every time he saw a shadow. Every time joins the frightened boy shivered, the main clause, and he saw a shadow, which is the dependent clause. Second one, the boy squeezed his palms together until they turned red. Until joins the main clause, the boy squeezed his palms together and they turned red. They turned red isn't a independent thought, complete thought. So it needs a main clause with it. And the last one, he ran into the forest. That is just a main clause. There's no dependent clause in that sentence. So 3 is a cross. Well done, Year 3. If you need to go back over that, just press pause while you fix up your answer and press play when you're ready to continue. Well done. Have I identified, that should say the subordinating conjunction. Have I identified the subordinating conjunction correctly? And how do you know? Now remember, subordinating conjunctions join a main clause and a dependent clause together. Press pause while you work out whether 1, 2, or 3 have subordinating conjunctions. And then press play when you're ready to check your answer. Well done. Okay, let's take a look how you went. Number 1, he tugged on the warm coat as soon as he reached at it. As soon as is the subordinating conjunction. He reached it is the dependent clause. So number 1 is not correct. I brushed my hand along the cow's soft hair once I was close enough to touch it. Once joins the main clause and the dependent clause together. Number 3, he stumbled forward along the path. That one, forward, is not a subordinating conjunction. That whole sentence is a main clause. So number 3 is not correct. Write down the subordinating conjunction in this sentence. The eager boy set off into the forest when the sun rose. I'll read it again. The eager boy set off into the forest when the sun rose. You're trying to find the subordinating conjunction which joins a main clause and a dependent clause together. The joining word. Press pause while you try to find it and write it down, and then press play when you're ready to continue. Fantastic. Let's see how you went. Did you find when? When is the subordinating conjunction that joins the main clause, the eager boy set off into the forest, and the dependent clause, the sun rose, together? Fantastic work. Press pause if you need to read back over that, and then press play when you're ready to continue. Next one. Write down the subordinating conjunction in this sentence. The cautious girl eyed the cake suspiciously after the boy handed it to her. You need to find the main clause, then the dependent clause, and then the little joining word that joins them together. You're looking for that joining word. Press pause while you write down the subordinating conjunction, the joining word, and then press play when you're ready to check your answer. Well done. Let's see how you went. Did you find after? The cautious girl eyed the cake suspiciously. That is one main thought. That is the main clause. The boy handed it to her is the dependent clause. And after joins the two words together. After is the subordinating conjunction. Press pause if you need to go back over that, and then press play when you're ready to continue. Fantastic. You are working really hard today. I'm really impressed. Next one. Write down the subordinating conjunction in this sentence. Can you remind me what's a subordinating conjunction? A few of you got it right. Well done. Subordinating conjunctions join a main clause or a main idea and a dependent clause together. I leapt into Dad's arms before he could take a breath. What is the joining word that joins, or the subordinating conjunction that joins the main clause and the dependent clause together? Press pause while you write it down and press play when you're ready to check your answer. Well done. Did you spot before? Before is the subordinating conjunction. I leapt into Dad's arms is the main clause. He could take a breath. That is the dependent clause. And before joins those two clauses together. All right, so my turn. Today I am learning to use subordinating conjunctions in my writing to engage my reader. Your turn. Fantastic. Okay, which sentence is more engaging for the reader? And how do you know? 1, he wished he had worn a coat. 2, he wished he had worn a coat as he stepped outside. Write down on the piece of paper which one is more engaging and how do you know? Press pause while you work it out and press play when you're ready to check. Okay, let's see how you went. Number 2 is more engaging. How do I know? It has a subordinating conjunction. It gives us more information in the sentence. He wished he had worn a coat as he stepped outside. As is the subordinating conjunction. Help me improve my writing. Have I included a subordinating conjunction? Can you edit and refine my work? My sentence, I tried to visit my grandmother. That's a main clause, but I need you to add in a subordinating conjunction to that sentence. It is often dark in the forest. Again, I need you to add in a subordinating conjunction. There are some on the screen there to help you. Press pause while you fix up my sentences and press play when you're ready to check your answer. Oh, I think there are some fantastic sentences. Thank you for helping me fix up my writing. How did you go? Here's what I had. I try to visit my grandmother as soon as I arrive home from school. As soon as is a subordinating conjunction, which joins a main clause and a dependent clause together. It is often dark in the forest because the tall trees block out the sunlight. Because is my subordinating conjunction. Did you use a subordinating conjunction to improve my sentences? You might have chosen a different one to me. Press pause if you need to check and add in a subordinating conjunction to these sentences. You can flick back to the previous slide if you need some help with some examples of subordinating conjunctions, like are on the screen here. Press pause while you fix that up, and then press play when you're ready to continue. Well done. Okay, so your writing task today is to write the introduction of or the sequel to Into the Forest. So you're starting off your new story about the boy. The boy has, remember, just got home after his adventure in the forest. He's returned home with Dad after meeting all of those interesting people in the forest. What happens next in the story after the boy arrives home and to see Mum? The introduction, you're going to set the scene and introduce your main characters in your story. Don't forget to use subordinating conjunctions. On the screen here is my example. You might like to choose some of the subordinating conjunctions in red in your writing. You can go back and listen to the story again if you need to get some ideas. I can't wait to see, and Miss Salib can't wait to see what you've come up with this afternoon in our Zoom meeting. Keep up that great work. I can't wait to see your subordinating conjunction sentences. Have a great day, and thanks for focusing so hard today. Bye.